Okay, so this afternoon session, back to maths focus. So today we're going to look at mean, mode, median, and range. So mean, mode, median, and range are basically the four different techniques to help work out statistical methods to investigate situations. So when you get an exam question come up, they're going to be, they're obviously going to be varied. So you may get tables or lists come up in the exam questions. The subjects can vary. Sometimes it could be on, generally they are quite functional, so they will try and make it quite broad so you can kind of relate to it. So I've seen things come up about video games and different people playing video games and what their scores was, and trying to work out like the average and the most common scores coming from those. So they're basically all used to find different outcomes of data. So those of you that have joined in before, you're going to know that I love a video, and in particular, Math Antics is one of my favourites. This guy is really engaging, and he's my new best friend. So I'm just going to show you his video. He's going to give you a really good understanding of mean, mode, and median. I'll then go over range. We'll have a recap, and then we'll have a quiz to finish with. So let me know if there's any problems with the sound. Hopefully it should all be okay.
Hi, this is Rob. Welcome to Math Antics. In this lesson, we're going to learn about three important math concepts called the mean, the median, and the mode. Math often deals with data sets, and data sets are often just collections or groups of numbers. These numbers may be the results of scientific measurements, or surveys, or other data collection methods. For example, you might record the ages of each member of your family into a data set. Or you might measure the weight of each of your pets and list them in a data set. Those data sets are fairly small and easy to understand, but you could have much bigger data sets. A really big data set might contain the cost of every item in a store, or the top speed of every land mammal, or the brightness of all the stars in our galaxy. Those data sets would contain a lot of different numbers, and if you had to look at a big data set all at one time, it would be pretty hard to make sense of it or say much about it besides, well, that's a lot of numbers. But that's where mean, median, and mode can really help us out. There are three different properties of data sets that can give us useful, easy to understand information about the data set so that we can see the big picture and understand what the data means about the world we live in. That sounds pretty useful, huh? So let's learn what each property really is and find out how to calculate them for any particular data set. Let's start with the mean. You may not have ever heard of something called the mean before, but I'll bet you've heard of the average. If so, then I've got good news. Mean means average. Mean and average are just two different terms for the exact same property of a data set. The mean, or average, is an extremely useful property. To understand what it is, let's look at a simple data set that contains 5 numbers. As a visual aid, let's also represent those numbers with stacks of blocks whose heights correspond to their values. 1, 8, 3, 2, 6. Right now, since each of the 5 numbers is different, the stacks of blocks are all different heights. But what if we rearrange the blocks with the goal of making the stacks the same height? In other words, if each stack could have the exact same amount, what would that amount be? Well, with a bit of trial and error, you'll see that we have enough blocks for each stack to have a total of 4. That means that the mean, or average, for our original data set would be 4. Some of the numbers are greater than 4, and some are less. But if the amounts could all be made the same, they would all become 4. So that's the concept of the mean. It's the value you'd get if you could smooth out or flatten all of the different data values into one consistent value. But is there a way that we could use math to calculate the mean of a data set? After all, it would be very inconvenient if we always had to use stacks of blocks to do it. There's got to be an easier way. To learn the mathematical procedure for calculating the mean, let's start with blocks again. But this time, instead of using trial and error, let's use a more systematic way to make the stacks all the same height. This way involves a clever combination of addition and division. We know that we want to end up with 5 stacks that all have the same number of blocks, right? So first, let's add up all of the numbers, which is like putting all of the blocks we have into one big stack. Adding up all of the numbers, or counting all the blocks, shows us that we have a total of 20. Next, we divide that number, or stack, into 5 equal parts. Since the stack has a total of 20 blocks, dividing it into 5 equal stacks means that we'll have 4 in each, since 20 divided by 5 equals 4. So that's the math procedure you use to find the mean of a data set. It's just 2 simple steps. First, you add up all the numbers in the set, and then you divide the total you get by how many numbers you added up. The answer you get is the mean of the data set. Let's use that procedure to find the mean age of the members of this fine-looking family here. If we add them all up using a calculator, or by hand if you would like, the total of the ages is 222 years. But then, we need to divide that total by the number of ages we added, which is 6. 222 divided by 6 is 37. So that's the mean age of all the members in this family. All right, that's the mean. Now what about the median? The median is the middle of a data set. It's the number that splits the data set into 2 equally sized groups or halves. One half contains members that are greater than or equal to the median, and the other half contains members that are less than or equal to the median. Sometimes finding the median of a data set is easy, and sometimes it's hard. That's because finding the middle value of a data set requires that its members be in order from the least to the greatest, or vice versa. And if the data set has a lot of numbers, it might take a lot of work to put them in the right order, if they aren't already that way. So to make things easier, let's start with a really basic data set that isn't in order. It's pretty easy to see that we can put this data set in order from the least to the greatest value just by switching the 2 and the 1. There, now we have the data set 1, 2, 3, and finding the median or middle of this data set is easy. It's just 2, because the 2 is located exactly in the middle. That almost seems too easy, doesn't it? But don't worry, it gets harder. But before we try a harder problem, I want to point out that sometimes the mean and the median of a data set are the same number, and sometimes they're not. In the case of our simple data set, 1, 2, 3, the median is 2, and the mean is also 2, as you can see if we rearrange the amounts or follow the procedure we learned to calculate the mean. But what about the first data set that we found the mean of? We determined that the mean of this data set is 4, but what about the median? Well, the median is the middle, and since this data set is already in order from least to greatest, it's easy to see that the 3 is located in the middle, since it splits the other members into 2 equal groups. So for this data set, the mean is 4, but the median is 3. So to find the median of a set of numbers, first you need to make sure that all the numbers are in order, and then you can identify the member that's exactly in the middle by making sure there's an equal number of members on either side of it. Okay, so far so good. But some of you may be wondering, what if a data set doesn't have an obvious middle member? All of the sets we've found the median of so far have an odd number of members. But what if a set has an even number of members, like the data set 1, 2, 3, 4? There isn't a member in the middle that splits the set into 2 equally sized groups. If that's the case, we can actually use what we learned about the mean to help us out. If the data set has an even number of members, then to find the median, we need to take the middle 2 numbers and calculate the mean or average of those 2. By doing that, we're basically figuring out what number would be exactly halfway between the 2 middle numbers, and that number will be our median. For example, in the set 1, 2, 3, 4, we need to take the middle 2 numbers, 2 and 3, and find the mean of those numbers. We can do that by adding 2 and 3, and then dividing by 2. 2 plus 3 equals 5, and 5 divided by 2 is 2.5. So the median of the data set is 2.5. Even though the number 2.5 isn't actually a member of the data set, it's the median because it represents the middle of the data set and it splits the members into 2 equally sized groups. Okay, so now you know the difference between mean and median, but what about the mode of a data set? What in the world does that mean? Well, mode is just a technical word for the value in a data set that occurs most often. In the data sets we've seen so far, there hasn't even been a mode because none of the data values were ever repeated. But what if you had this data set? This set has 6 members, but some of the values are repeated. If we rearrange them, you can see that there's 1 1, 2 2s, and 3 3s. The mode of this data set is the value that occurs most often or most frequently, so that would be 3 since there's 3 3s. Now don't get confused just because the number 3 was repeated 3 times. The mode is the number that's repeated most often, not how many times it was repeated. As I mentioned, if each member in a data set occurs only once, it has no mode. But it's also possible for a data set to have more than one mode. Here's an example of a data set like that. In this set, the number 7 is repeated twice, but so is the number 15. That means they tie for the title of mode. This set has two modes, 7 and 15. Okay, so now that you know what the mean, median, and mode of a data set are, let's put all that new information to use in one final real-world example. Suppose there's this guy who makes and sells custom electric guitars. Here's a table showing how many guitars he sold during each month of the year. Let's find the mean, median, and mode of this data set. First, to find the mean, we need to add up the number of guitars sold in each month. You can do the addition by hand or you can use a calculator if you want to. Either way, be careful since that's a lot of numbers to add up and we don't want to make a mistake. The answer I get is 108. So that's the total he sold for the whole year. But to get the mean sold each month, we need to divide that total by the number of months, which is 12. 108 divided by 12 is 9. So the mean, or average, is 9. Next, to find the median of the data set, we're going to have to rearrange the 12 data points in order from smallest to largest so we can figure out what the middle value is. There, that's better. Since there's an even number of members in this set, we can't just choose the middle number. So we're going to have to pick the middle two numbers and then find the mean of them. 9 and 10 are in the middle since there's an equal number of data values on either side of them. So we need to take the mean of 9 and 10. That's easy. 9 plus 10 equals 19, and then 19 divided by 2 is 9.5. So the median number of guitars sold is 9.5. That means that in half of the months he sold more than 9.5, and in half of the months he sold less than 9.5. Last of all, let's identify the mode of this data set, if there is one. Well, let's see. There's 2 8s in the data set. Oh, but there's 3 10s. That looks like the most frequent number. So 10 is the mode of this data set. It's the result that occurred most often. All right, so that's the basics of mean, median, and mode. There are 3 really useful properties of data sets, and now you know how to find them. But sometimes the hardest part about mean, median, and mode is just remembering which is which. So remember that mean means average, median is in the middle, and mode starts with MO, which can remind you that it's the number that occurs most often. Remember, to get good at math, you need to do more than just watch videos about it. You need to practice. So be sure to try finding the mean, median, and mode on your own. As always, thanks for watching Math Antics, and I'll see you next time.
Okay, so hopefully now watching that video, you've got a really good understanding of what mean, median, and mode mean. So is anyone feeling brave that could maybe throw me, if you've learned anything from that video, could you maybe think of an example of when in your everyday job role, so as an AP, when do you think you might need to use any of those, mean, median, or mode? Can anyone think of any different situations that you may already do it and you don't even realize you're doing it? Do you have to work out the average numbers of anything? So you can either unmute yourself if you're feeling brave, or
average numbers on a team.
Yeah, excellent, spot on. Yeah, definitely. So I'm sure you guys split up groups all the time. So yeah, you haven't average numbers. Also, it might be something that maybe your franchisees might be looking at. So they might be looking at the average number of attendees on your holiday clubs or lunchtime after school clubs, etc. So that information is vital to them. So for them to know the average of what it is, how many numbers you've got, may determine whether that club continues. So averages are generally the most important one. And to be honest, in your exams, they're definitely the one that's most likely to come up as well. So the only one that wasn't covered in there was range. So range should hopefully be one of the easiest ones. And in terms of a level 2 maths exam, you'll definitely never get a question on its own just asking for the range, because it's based as a level 1 question, but they may throw in there with another set of data. Can you work out the average number and the range as well. So they may throw it as an extra, but it won't be on its own. So just to recap, and just so you do know, the range is basically the difference between the lowest and highest value. So you've got a set of numbers, as you can see on the screen, ranging from 3 to 13. You find that highest value, you find the lowest one, you do your sum on your calculator. So your 13 minus your 3 would give you 10. If this did come up in the exam, you need to make sure you wouldn't just put 10 in your answer box, you would put 13 minus 3 and show your full working out. Okay, so just a quick recap on mode. So mode is the most often or the most common number that appears in a set of data. So I like to use a bit of word association. So MO for mode, MO for most common. So whenever you see mode, think of most, and that will help remind you of what one it is that they're looking for. So the example, obviously there you've got a set of data. This one's nice, it's all in order anyway. Number 3 comes up 3 times. 7's only there twice, so 3 is your mode. It's the most common number that comes up. So recap on median. Median is the one that comes, basically you need to do a word association with middle. The words look very similar, and also they both have 6 letters. So that's quite an easy way of trying to remember what the median is. Try and think of the word middle. You need to put them in order is the most important thing. Put them in order before you can find that middle number. And obviously they just need to be in a logical order as well. Okay, so recap on mean. Mean is basically the average. So as long as you can associate mean with average by eradicating the other 3, then hopefully you remember what mean is, and mean is definitely the one that's going to come up in your exam. I'm like 90% sure it'll come up, so you must make sure you know what it means. So you've got a set of data, make sure you add them all together, and you are dividing by however many numbers there are. So in this example, the total of that amount added up is 42. There's 7 numbers to add up, so we divide it by 7. So the average number is 6. Okay, so as always, practice makes perfect. So I've got a little bit of a task for you to do. So on the screen, you're going to see a receipt. What I want you to do is have a look at the figures on the receipt. There's 5 items that have been purchased. What is the mode? So can you remember what the mode is and what is the number? Can you write your answer in the chat box, please? Okay, so what is MO? What can you use as a word association? Excellent. Yep, well done, Harry. So Harry's got the first answer, so £2.50. It's the most common number that's come up. It's the only one that's there twice. So well done, spot on. Well done, Chantel. Okay, so looking at the items purchased, what sum will I do to work out the range? So I don't expect you to work it out. Just tell me what I would do. What would I put in the calculator? Or how would I do it? Again, using chat box. So which one is the range? What am I going to do? Excellent. Yep, brilliant. Well done, Heather. So yeah, I'm going to find the highest and I'm going to minus the lowest. So in this example, £10 was the most expensive item, £2.50 was the cheapest, minus your £2.50 from your 10. You always start with that highest number because otherwise you're going to get a minus number and it'll be wrong. So the range is 7. Okay, so what would I need to do with the amounts before I can work out the median? So what's the obvious thing, looking at the figures at the moment of the prices and how they were put through on the receipt? What's the obvious thing I need to do before I can start working out the median? Excellent. Yeah, well done, Ben. Yeah, I need to put them in order. So either lowest to highest or highest to lowest, either or. It will help me obviously work out what that middle number is. So in this example, I've chosen to go from the highest down to the lowest. And then you can clearly see with my really bad drawn circle that 575 comes out in the middle. Okay, excellent. So last question is, what sum will I do to work out the mean? What am I going to do? Again, I don't expect you to work it out. If you're quick and you want to work it out, you can. But just write in the chat box, what will I do to work out that mean? What does mean mean? Excellent. Well done, Ben. Add them all up and divide by how many they are. Spot on. Okay, so yeah, add all the amounts up, divide by 5. There's 5 items on there, so spot on. So showing the example, I've added them all up. The total is £30.25. Excellent. And then I'll divide by 5. Well done. So as always, let's see what you've learned. Make sure that it's actually gone on, sunk in, sorry. Obviously, some of you have been giving me some answers in the chat box, which is great. I think most of you have been on before, but for those of you that haven't, if you can download Kahoot on your app, if you leave the Teams running, you should be able to still hear me as well if you are on your phone and trying to multitask. Okay, excellent. So just a reminder of instructions, whether you're on the app or the website. Either way, you should now have a Kahoot come up on your page, and then I'll get a game pin in a second. As always, don't worry, it is just for fun, and I will send you evidence. You come out on top just for your bragging rights, and you can do whatever you wish with that. So good luck. Okay, so the pin's now coming on the screen when it loads. If it loads. Okay, there we go. Okay, so your game pin's on the screen. You'll enter that in, pop your name in or a nickname, whatever you want to use, or an initial, it's entirely up to you. Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Harry. Heather's back. See if she can keep her reigning champion of 100% score. And we've got CK in the house as well. Thank you. So there's 4 of you in. Let's see if anyone else wants to join. We'll give you another 30 seconds and then we will crack on. So if anyone that hasn't played this before, I think Harry, Heather and Ben has. Chantel, you might not have played this before. However, it's pretty simple. So as soon as I press start, the quiz will start and I will read out the question, but the question will be on the screen so you can see the question, you'll hear the question, and then you answer using your phone. So you use your keypad to pick the correct answer. It's not just getting the correct answer, it's also getting the quickest answer as well. So if you all get it correct, whoever's the quickest will come out on top. So it looks like someone's just dropped out. Looks like Ben's dropped out, so we'll just wait and see if Ben's going to come and join back in. Here he comes. He's back. Cool. Okay, so good luck, just for fun. Okay, so it's now going to start. 5 questions, as always. Which of these are not a method of analysing data? Look at the scores. Well done, Ben. You were the quickest. Excellent. Great start. To work out the range, you need to do what? have a look at the scores. Oh, here she comes. Heather's back on top. Well done, Heather. Okay, so just remember the quickest answer will get you ahead. What word will help you to remember the mode? Excellent. Everyone got that one right. Good to see that no one chose any of the others. Heather's, well done. She's quick. Harry's on a roll, getting them all correct. Well done, Harry. Heather's obviously just beaten you to how quick she was on her answer for that one. Next question. The mean also means to work out what? Excellent. Well done. Let's see, you got them correct. Well done, Heather. Heather's on a streak now. She's got all correct and she is the quickest so far. So last question to see who comes out on top. Okay, the median is the middle value. Okay, let's see who's the quickest. Well done, Ben. You've come out in third. Harry's come in second. Well done, Heather. You've restored your winning streak. I'm impressed. Well done. Chantal, I can see that you've obviously had a few technical issues. You want to stay on after? I do use this quiz quite a lot, and we can try and figure out why you couldn't see or yours weren't working properly. But in terms of anything that I've gone through today, has anyone got any questions? Or are you all happy that you now know the differences between mean, mode, median, and range, what they are, and how to work them out? Thanks, Ben.